Last night, CNN hosted an LGBTQ town hall, and Chris Cuomo offended everybody by making a joke. A couple protests erupted. I want to make something clear. I believe it's extremely important that we protect the rights of the LGBTQ community. We have these discussions, and I appreciate the idea of having this town hall. Now, that being said, I believe CNN was making a spectacle of these people, of this community, and causing real harm. I will criticize to an extent the protesters, but for the most part, I can respect the protest, by all means. If you want to say something and you want to be heard and you take that mic, okay. The problem is, CNN knows what they are doing. First of all, Chris Cuomo was being slammed for saying he used female pronouns. He had to apologize for it. We'll come to this story. A black trans woman took the microphone away from a transgender child and started yelling, "You have erased black trans men for the last time." Okay, I believe CNN did this on purpose. I believe they know who these people are. They knew this was going to happen. They have security for this. Listen, another protest erupted where they held up flags saying, "We are dying." Again, I can respect that. But this is a spectacle. CNN is doing this for ratings. Let me make something clear. Anderson Cooper with millions of dollars, Democratic 2020 candidates like Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris. You think that anybody entering this building wasn't screened? No, they were screened. In fact, I went to an RNC debate early on in Miami, and they wouldn't let you bring anything inside, like no bags, nothing. Okay, like your wallet and your phone were acceptable. That was it. You had a bag, sorry, you can't come in. Period. Well, I actually somehow got a bag in. I guess they didn't notice, and I got stopped by Secret Service and searched. So let me ask you this: they were able to smuggle in these flags. How? Security knew, right? Because the answer is, I believe CNN was well aware and wanted the viral clips, wanted the viral articles, wanted to generate attention because they don't actually care about passing laws to help people. They care about generating traffic and clicks. And I get it. That's what the media does. The media is in the business of getting your attention so they can sell ads. And this was the best way to do it. But I must admit, I feel like the protesters were used. Okay, it's just my opinion. Maybe CNN really didn't know, and they're terrible at what they do. Fine. What I mean to say is, I think CNN was like, "Ooh, we got protesters coming. Oh yeah. Don't take their flags away. Yeah, let them do it." It could have been as simple as, we better not take their flags away because they'll get outraged and they'll attack us. Fine. Take a look at Chris Cuomo. Kamala Harris said her pronouns are she, her, and hers, and Cuomo said mine too. And then Kamala Harris was like, "All right. You just said something offensive." There's another moment here where a woman had her name mispronounced and you could see it in her face, shock, it was a trans woman, and she was called Shay, and she said her name is Shia, and that it was violence to mispronounce their name. When I see this, I will absolutely state I am critical of those who, it's not violence to mispronounce someone's name. It's called normal life, and some people mispronounce names. Chris Cuomo made a stupid joke. Please, can we calm down? And this protester took the microphone away from a child who was transgender asking a question to a presidential candidate. This is disruptive, and it's disruptive of an event where they were literally talking about what you wanted to talk about. So I don't care who you are, where you come from. I am an equal opportunity critic, okay? If you want to disrupt an event for you, go ahead and do it. Don't be surprised when you get some criticism. But again, I think the bigger responsibility falls on CNN, who allows this to happen. And I think they do it because they want the shock spectacle. They want the outrage videos. They want conservative controversy. And then they want to say, "See, look at all the bigots." No, listen. They absolutely could have gotten anybody to come up and speak about these issues without being disruptive, without getting offended at the use of their name. Now, I understand there's going to be a lot of conservatives who say, "No, Tim, these people are just like this." And I'm going to say, no. There are conservative trans people. They exist. Trans people are not a monolith. They're individuals. And we should absolutely do what we can to protect the rights of the LGBTQ community. We shouldn't be forced to bring in conservative trans people. But I think it's fair to say you can bring on good advocates and bad advocates. When it comes to doing interviews, you know what really, really bothers me? And let me break this down for you in a larger context with a better analogy. I see video after video of conservatives who go out to interview people and ask them questions about politics, and it's like, all these people are so dumb. You see the same thing Jimmy Kimmel does. He goes out to Hollywood and he grabs random people and they take a highlight reel of how dumb people are. I went to the March for Our Lives, okay? It was the big 2A protest thing from the Parkland kids. And I found that many of the people I talked to didn't know much about how these weapons work. And when it was clear, I would say, okay, some of these I will use as for interviews, but some people would just be like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm not here to make a hit piece that makes you all look crazy. I'm here to find people who have ideas about this and will explain themselves calmly and fairly. And I found a decent amount of people who knew enough to have a conversation and say, here's what I think. I understand, they would say, I don't know a lot about this issue, but I do know about these, and here's what I'm thinking. And it was actually surprising to me that I could find a decent amount of people and not make them all look like morons. I can't stand this. They go to Trump rallies and they go, look how dumb the Trump supporters are. They go to the protests and say, look how dumb the protesters are. I get it, there's a lot of dumb people. But stop straw manning and start steel manning. Okay, that means instead of going after the weakest to make so you look right, actually go after the real argument. Ignore the crazy people. So you want to have this event? You know what this was to me, CNN? This was CNN, in my opinion, taking people, selecting for their audience who they knew would make a spectacle. Because let me tell you something. When Bernie Sanders did his town hall, and all of these audience members asked questions, it turns out they worked for the DNC. And then CNN apologized later. Oh, we didn't know. Yes, CNN knows who is in the audience. It is not just like people are open the door, anybody can come in. No, they know what's going on. You searched, you screened, they're presidential candidates. And CNN chose people they knew would cause a scene. And now you're getting articles making them all look crazy. This is not what we need for the actual conversation. What we need for conversation are calm and reasonable people to passionately explain we must take action, and here's why. Now, of course, CNN did have those people. There were only a couple protests. But I must stress, when they bring on the person who is shocked and offended their name was mispronounced, when they bring on the person who takes the mic away from a child and starts yelling about, trans black women being erased, which is literally what the event is talking about, and when they bring in people who are allowed to have flags do something we are dying, that to me is CNN saying, what can we do to get ratings? I know. Let's find people who will cause a scene. But guess what happens? By highlighting unreasonable behaviors, protesting your own event, taking the mic away from a child. I don't care if you're white, black, gay, straight, whatever. If you're gonna act a fool, I will criticize you. Most of the people at this event were absolutely fine, and they did a good job talking about their positions. My criticism is not at those who want to protest because they are passionate. My criticism is not at the anti-Trump protesters who are just uninformed, very dumb, or at the Trump supporters who are also very dumb. I think dumb people exist, stupid people exist, irrational people exist. The point is, we should not be focusing on this in exchange for clicks. Okay? I'm going to ask again. How did that flag get into? How did they get that into the CNN on the CNN set? I mean that literally. Do you really believe their security is that lax? I don't buy it. They knew what they were doing. They knew it would get clicks, and they knew it would be controversial. And then they have this big viral moment where USA Today writes it up. And to me, it's media strategy, complete media strategy. They were literally talking about these issues. So it doesn't make sense. But I'll tell you what does make sense. USA Today writing a story about the protests. Pundits, controversy, generating outrage. That's the point. So yes, there are a lot of people that I really don't like on YouTube who purposefully target stupid people. Or it's not that they purposely target stupid people. It's that, yeah, I get it. A lot of people are stupid. And they'll make these videos and be like, look how dumb people are. And I'm like, dude, I get it. There are a lot of people who don't pay attention to politics. Yes, they probably should in a certain capacity, but for the most part, I don't blame them. It's a horrifying reality to live in. Politics is a nightmarish battle. Why don't you go out and find real people who you can actually challenge, you can actually have a conversation with, and actually, prove your ideas right. This is not just a right or left thing. This is a spectacle thing. I know that if I go out onto the street and I film, how dumb everyone is, then people will be like, confirmation bias. I knew Group X was dumb. I think that's what CNN did. I think they wanted this to happen because I'll stress, they know who their audience members are. You get it, man. I said it 50 times already. I detest CNN. They say audience members interrupted. Oh, you know what? You get the point. I don't need to read for you the breakdown of exactly what happened, but Trans protesters hold flags and chant. He's now addressing how diverse and challenged the LGBTQ community is and that it must be open to acceptance. Listen, in any other event, would we tolerate protesters protesting the very ideas we're talking about? For the most part, no. Would we hand them the microphone? Would we say, yes, please continue? The answer is no. Events are set to take place for conversation. So let me point out, not only were the flags allowed in, or they have no security in there, and that's insane. They were allowed to bring the flags in, and they were allowed to continue their protest, as was this other trans woman. But how is any of this, conducive to the conversation that we're going to solve these problems? In my opinion, this wouldn't be tolerated in any other circumstance. Could you imagine if they did a town hall on, a standard Democrat town hall and a bunch of people stepped up with flags? Has it happened? Maybe it's happened before. Maybe CNN really just is really bad at what they do. I don't know. Fact check me. Google it. Have people broken out with objects and signs and whatever at a CNN town hall? I know people have yelled things. People yelled things at like Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris or whatever. Yelling things I get. You can't stop that. But what about people bringing in objects? A flag or something. And when these things happen, what do? They shut the protesters down and kick them out. When people start yelling, they say, okay, we know, keep it down. And then eventually you'll see them get escorted. Here, they didn't do that. So I'll end with one final thought. I agree with the town hall. I think it was a good idea. I think it was a very good idea. I just wish CNN wasn't so disingenuous. I agree with the idea of having these conversations. They need to be had. It's very difficult often. I'm willing to bet this video is going to get slammed and people are going to criticize me saying, how dare you criticize the protesters, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. We're going to solve these problems when we sit down for a conversation. And that means if you want to be disruptive, you are hurting the process. And in the end, this spectacle that CNN puts on is fodder for conservatives who are going to be like, see, look at these people who are nuts. And you're going to find a lot of moderates being turned off from the conversation saying, I don't want to have anything that, you know what, man, that's crazy. I don't want to. So here's the problem. To the people who actually protested themselves, like their own event, you have to understand it's not helping, okay? It's fuel for the other side. And to CNN, who wants the clicks and the traffic off it and allows it to happen, that to me is disgusting. I'm done. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m., youtube.com/Timcast, and I'll see you there.